Satellite imagery confirmed it 48 hours ago, a smoldering crater where a $300 million radar system used to stand, ANTPY-2, the most advanced ground-based missile tracking radar the United States Army deploys outside its own borders. Gone, not damaged, not degraded, destroyed. And now, with that radar reduced to molten steel at Muwaffaq Salti Air Base in Jordan, the United States Navy just announced it is sending warships into the Strait of Hormuz to escort civilian tankers through waters Iran controls. Iran's Revolutionary Guard has already responded. 4 words: we are waiting for you. This is not posturing. This is a calculated sequence. And if you understand what that radar actually did, you understand exactly how dangerous those 4 words are right now. Let's establish what was just lost. The ANTPY-2 is not a conventional radar. It is the forward-based sensor backbone of America's entire theater missile defense architecture in the Middle East. It operates an X-band frequency, which means it can track objects as small as a basketball at ranges exceeding 1,000 kilometers. It provides the targeting data that feeds THAAD interceptors, Patriot batteries, and Aegis destroyers simultaneously. It is the system that tells every other defensive system in the region where the threat is, how fast it is moving, and where it will be in 12 seconds. Without it, every downstream defensive system in the network is operating on degraded data. You do not lose a radar and keep the same defensive capability. You lose a radar and you lose the coherence of the entire kill chain. That is not a $300 million equipment loss. That is a structural hole in the missile defense network that covers Jordan, Saudi Arabia, the northern Gulf approaches, and the eastern Mediterranean. Iran did not destroy a piece of hardware. Iran destroyed the regional nervous system that connects American defensive platforms into a unified response architecture. And they did it before announcing a naval confrontation. That sequence is not coincidence. That is operational planning. Now understand what Trump just committed to. The U.S. Navy will escort civilian tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. This sounds like a deterrence measure. In 1987, it was called Operation Earnest Will, and it worked. American warships reflagged Kuwaiti tankers, escorted them through Iranian-mined waters, and kept the oil flowing during the Iran-Iraq War. The history is real. The deterrence logic is real. But 1987 was a different threat environment. In 1987, Iran did not possess a swarm boat doctrine refined over 30 years of asymmetric naval development. In 1987, Iran did not have Shahed drones that can fly 500 miles and transmit targeting data before being shot down. In 1987, the USS Stark was struck by an Iraqi Exocet missile and 37 sailors died. And that was a single missile from a single aircraft. Today, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy operates between 200 and 300 fast attack craft capable of coordinated swarm operations, dispersed across 12 bases along the Gulf coastline. Today, Iran's coastal defense batteries include the Noor anti-ship missile, a domestically produced variant of the Chinese C-802 with a range of 170 kilometers and a sea-skimming flight profile designed specifically to defeat radar detection. Today, Iran has Shahed 136 loitering munitions, Mohiger reconnaissance drones, and Fateh 110 shore-to-ship ballistic missiles that rewrite the risk calculation for every surface vessel operating within 300 kilometers of the Iranian coastline. The IRGC did not reference 1987 by accident. They referenced it because they want you to think about what happened to the USS Samuel B. Roberts when it hit an Iranian mine in 1988. They referenced it because they want American naval planners to think about the limitations of surface escort operations in confined waters against an adversary that has had 38 years to study those limitations and develop countermeasures to every single one. Here is the physics of the problem that no press conference will explain directly. The Strait of Hormuz is 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. The navigable channel for deep draft vessels is approximately 2 miles wide per direction, separated by a 2-mile median zone. This means a convoy of tankers does not have freedom of maneuver. It has a corridor, and a corridor is the single most favorable operating environment for swarm attack doctrine. When the USS Thomas Hudner was hit by 57 Iranian fast boats in the Strait in February, the destroyer's 2 phalanx CIWS systems fired 1,550 rounds combined and ran dry before the threat was neutralized. The ship sustained 2 hull breaches, lost 1 engine, took 7 sailors killed, and required 4 months of dry dock repair. That was a single destroyer against a coordinated swarm. Now the United States is planning to insert multiple warships into that same corridor, escorting slow-moving tankers that cannot maneuver, cannot accelerate beyond 15 knots, and carry between 1 and 2 million barrels of crude oil in their hulls. A single IRGC suicide boat detonating against a laden VLCC does not create a military incident. It creates a fireball visible from space and an environmental catastrophe that shuts the strait for weeks. Iran knows this. Iran has built its entire Strait of Hormuz strategy around this asymmetry. The tanker is not just a target. The tanker is a weapon Iran can use against America by forcing America to defend it. And now the AN-TPY-2 is gone. This matters specifically for the naval escort mission, in ways that are not immediately obvious. The radar did not just track ballistic missiles. It provided over-the-horizon tracking data for the entire threat picture. Iranian fast boats operating close to the coastline, Noor missiles launching from mobile coastal batteries, Shahed drones lifting off from IRGC naval bases in Bandar Abbas. The radar's removal does not blind American forces to these threats completely. Ships have their own Aegis radar systems, but Aegis is optimized for aerial and ballistic threats. It was not designed as a primary sensor for tracking hundreds of small surface contacts simultaneously emerging from coastal terrain. The coordination gap created by losing AN-TPY-2 means that the early warning window for a multi-axis attack, surface boats, coastal missiles, and aerial drones launched simultaneously, has compressed. In the February engagement, the USS Thomas Hudner had approximately 4 minutes of warning between initial radar detection and the boats entering weapons range. 4 minutes was already insufficient against 57 contacts. A degraded sensor network compresses that window further. When warning time drops below 2 minutes against a coordinated multi-axis swarm, defensive sequencing breaks down entirely. You cannot prioritize threats. You cannot categorize. You cannot allocate interceptors to targets. You cannot track with confidence. Now here is the scenario that every CENTCOM planner is running right now behind closed doors. Day 1 of escort operations. A convoy of 3 tankers moves northbound through the Strait. 2 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers in escort formation, 1 leading, 1 trailing. Standard separation distances. Iranian IRGC drones begin reconnaissance flights at 48 hours prior, mapping the convoy pattern, timing the destroyer rotations, cataloging radar emissions. This is documented behavior. This is exactly what happened before the Thomas Hudner attack. On transit day, at 0300 hours, the IRGC activates a coordinated response from 3 separate vectors. 60 fast attack boats emerge from concealed positions behind Keshem Island. 8 Shah drones launch from Bandar Abbas Naval Base, flying low-altitude profiles to suppress Aegis tracking efficiency. 2 Noor coastal missiles fire from mobile launchers positioned in the Zagros mountain foothills, sea skimming at 4 meters above wave height toward the lead destroyer. The destroyers now face a simultaneous surface swarm, aerial drone saturation, and 2 supersonic anti-ship missiles, all converging within a 6-minute window in a 2-mile-wide navigable channel, with no AN-TPY-2 providing coordinated over-the-horizon tracking, and tankers carrying 3 million barrels of crude oil between the escort vessels. The failing systems fire. They run through their magazines in under 8 minutes against the swarm. The Noor missiles require standard missile intercepts, which depletes the vertical launch cells. The drones require FA-18 sorties, which pulls the combat air patrol from anti-missile coverage. Instant decision cascades with no good sequencing. And the tanker behind the trailing destroyer has nowhere to go. This is not speculation. This is what Iran has spent 8 months building the capability to execute. The swarm doctrine was proven in February. The drone reconnaissance penetration was demonstrated against the Abraham Lincoln in January. The coastal missile capability has been operational for over a decade. The AN-TPY-2 destruction was the final preparatory step. You do not destroy the adversary's early warning radar as a random act of escalation. You destroy it because you intend to operate in the window its absence creates. IRGC commanders did not say we are waiting for you because they are unprepared. They said it because they have been preparing for this specific scenario since the escort announcement was made. They referenced 1987 because they want the world to know they studied 1987, and they know exactly where the gaps were, and they have filled every single one of them. The economic leverage Iran holds in this equation is total. 20% of global petroleum consumption transits the Strait of Hormuz every day, approximately 20 million barrels. If escort operations trigger an escalation that Iran uses to mine the strait or to execute a coordinated attack that sinks or immobilizes a tanker in the navigable channel, the closure does not need to be complete to be catastrophic. A single immobilized VLCC in the 2-mile corridor stops all traffic behind it. Salvage operations in contested waters under active Iranian threat take weeks. Lloyd's of London has already increased war risk premiums for strait transits by 22% following the February swarm attack. A successful attack on an escorted convoy does not increase that premium. It makes the strait commercially impassable. No shipping company sends a crew into waters where the U.S. Navy escort itself has been hit. The insurance market closes. The traffic stops. Oil reaches $150 per barrel, not as a projection, but as a floor. And the global inflation wave that follows does not ask anyone's permission before it hits grocery prices in Jakarta, Lagos, and Karachi. Trump's escort announcement is not a bluff. The Navy will deploy. The tankers will move. The destroyers will form up. But Iran has spent 8 months answering one question with extraordinary precision. What does it cost to make American power projection in confined waters economically and operationally unsustainable? February gave them the swarm answer. January gave them the electronic warfare answer. The AN/TPY-2 destruction gives them the sensor architecture answer, and the strait gives them the geography. 21 miles wide, 2 miles of navigable channel, no room to maneuver, no room for error, no radar watching from Jordan anymore. The most consequential naval escort mission since 1987 is about to begin in the most prepared ambush environment in the modern era. IRGC commanders are not nervous. They are ready. And the question that Washington needs to answer before the first destroyer enters that channel is not whether the Navy can defend the tankers. The question is what the response will be when the cost of defending them proves higher than anyone publicly admitted it would be. Because Iran already knows that answer. They built their entire strategy around it. The eyes are gone. The ships are moving. And somewhere on the Iranian coastline, in a command center that no satellite has successfully located since the AN/TPY-2 went dark, someone just started the clock. What would you do right now if you were commanding the escort mission? Send the destroyers in and accept the risk, or hold the convoy until the sensor gap is closed? Put your strategy in the comments. Because the decision being made in the next 72 hours changes the operational map for every naval force in the world that watches what happens next in that 21-mile channel.